Okay. And we're back. Another day, all alone here in Casa Ladon. All alone because Lauren is still on deadline. Still on deadline. So it's just going to be me today, again, which I know everyone's pretty pumped about. All the comments have overwhelmingly been very pro Anthony and very anti Lauren, which is why I've hidden the comments from her for the most part. But it's just gonna be. So here's the deal. She's still on deadline. Today is when it's due. So like due, and I think it's gonna happen today. So and I'm actually shooting this a day late. It was supposed to come out. The podcast was supposed to come out on Tuesday. I am shooting this on a Wednesday, probably for a Thursday release. So it's going to be 2 days late. But that's okay. I figured better be late. And we don't have a ginormous viewership yet. We're getting there. We're getting there. And I think it's going to be slow. It's going to be very slow. But that's how the best podcasts are made. It's one subscriber, one listener at a time. All right, let me put 30 minutes on the clock. Let's go do 30. Bam. All right, let's get to our first question. Maybe our only question, depending on how good or bad it is. We might just cut this thing off. Okay. Is there such thing as objectively good or bad writing? Have we tackled this before? I feel like we may have touched on it before. And it's one, so this is a good question. And I'm saying that because I wrote it. Which is, I mean, like this is an objectively good written question, if you ask me. And I think, yes, there is objectively good or bad writing. I didn't listen to the Golden Globes. I didn't watch or listen to the Golden Globes or Joe Coy's monologue and everything. But I saw the headlines, which almost as good as being there, if you think about it. And people are disgruntled. People are disappointed. But I don't know. I mean, okay, first of all, let's table this question for just a second. And the Golden Globes thing. Okay, I feel like I really want to know what Joe, God, this is going to be a long day. What Joe Coy, I really want to know what was he thinking taking that gig. I mean, maybe let's assume he's right. Maybe let's assume he made the right decision to take the gig. There's out of all the possibilities of it going well or poorly, it seems like things were overwhelmingly stacked against him. I mean, you're taking the gig within 10 days of the thing happening. First of all, who's booking the Golden friggin' Globes 10 days out? I mean, did they try everybody else in Hollywood and nobody wanted it? How hard up do you have to be? Like, I'm booked for a gig 9 months in advance. And that's me. I'm not Joe Coy. I mean, I'll do the Golden Globes with no day's notice. I'll fly out there and, the day before it goes on next year, and I'll do it. I'll do a terrible job. I guarantee you that. But at least I know that going into it. So, but what was he thinking? Taking the gig 10 days out. Maybe it's lots of money. That's good. Maybe it's exposure, because I think a lot of people know who Joe Coy is, but there's a lot of people who don't know. And maybe this is a way to become a little bit more, even more mainstream. And sure, maybe you've accomplished that because now the news is talking about you, idiot podcasters are talking about you. But, is it the best exposure if people are like, oh, Joe Coy did a terrible job? I don't know. Bad news. What do they say? The only kind of bad news is no news at all about you. Even bad news is, it's good news. People are talking about him. Maybe there's enough people out there that are talking about him where some people are like, well, I'll go check out some of his comedy and see what it's, oh, he's pretty funny. Okay, good. Maybe then mission accomplished. You get a nice payday. You get a meme. You get like a Taylor Swift meme made for you, which is pretty cool. And you get some exposure. But then there's the question of, okay, do you want this thing to go well? Like I have a questionnaire that I ask before doing a corporate gig. And one of the questions is like, do you have lights and do you have sound? What's that situation look like? And I've talked to other comics who won't take a gig if the sound is not up to their specifications. A lot of it's the lights. If the lights aren't up to specification, and by that I mean like you should have a light on the comic, and then it should be dark everywhere else. In a perfect world, it's dark and it's cold for everybody else, and the lights are on the comic. Okay, that's perfect world. And I know people who will not take the gig unless that is the case. And that's not me. I will take any gig offered to me for almost any amount of money. Because this podcast isn't paying for itself. Okay? And really that's what I'm all about. I know so many other comedians are all about, I do the podcast to get more butts in seats. I do commercials to get money so that I can afford to put butts in seats. I work in Hollywood or acting or whatever else. And a lot of it is just to drive people to the comedy clubs, and not me. That's not what I'm about. I want to get people out of the comedy clubs. I don't want people to come see me. I want them to just listen to me. And nobody is sponsoring this podcast yet. So in order for that to happen, in order to kind of finance podcasts, I need to take corporate gigs. So I'll take anything and everything. I'm doing a gig in Chicago for $10, which doesn't even cover my Giordano's bill, which I'm actually a little bit concerned about. That's okay, because it's a big pie, and that'll feed me for days. But yeah, I'll take any gig. So anyway, I'd love to understand what was going through Joe Coy's mind taking that gig. And I realize that some people in the news are upset about it. Okay, I don't really care. And I can't comment too much because obviously I said I haven't watched the thing or listened to it, and I'm probably not going to, because this is not a fact-based podcast. This is a lie-based podcast. But let's get back to Candid Creative content. Oh, Triple C. We should have like a little ding, 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 a thing. That'd be pretty cool. And whenever I use a C word, which could also get me canceled. Another C word. Okay. But to get this back to the Candid Creative side of things, is there such thing as good, objectively good or bad writing? And yes, I think so. I think there is. But I don't think that necessarily is coupled with success. Okay, so let's get that out of there right out the gate, because I think there can be you can have a successful comedian or writer or author, whatever, anybody who writes down stuff. And I think you can have somebody who's successful but is not a very good writer. You can also have people who aren't successful and who aren't good writers. I have found that out from personal experience. But I think there is such thing as good, objectively good. And I think that's the point of education, it's one point of education, is to try to expose people to good writing. That's why we study the classics. That's why we study, Lord of the Flies. It's a well-written, it's a good book. That's why there's AP literature classes, AP English classes, which I know none of our listeners have attended those classes, but you may have heard of the books, and that's good. That's good. There's, Brit Lit was a class in my high school that I did not attend, but I think that's the point of education, is to try to raise the overall, to educate, yeah. But I think part of it is to increase your tastes. in things, to not just go for really, I mean, sometimes the crappy stuff is great, but I don't know. I think, yeah, that's the point of education, to expose yourself to good writing, bad writing, lots of, what does a logical argument sound like, how to write. There are people who, there are people who don't know how to write an email, and most of them find their way into business. For whatever reason, business in general as a job is a great collector for people who don't know how to write well. That's why I went into it. I couldn't structure a logical, well-organized email, and business came calling and they're like, you seem like a good fit for us. And I said, I like what you're offering. And I went. Because I think there is objectively good or bad writing. But again, it doesn't necessarily equate to success, because there probably are some good writers who are not very successful. I mean, I wish I knew of some, but I'm not well read enough. But yeah, I think there are objective, and I think let's put some parameters on this. Okay, so this is for creatives. And I think as creatives, and especially in the writing world, I think we can put some parameters around what does objectively good or objectively bad mean. There's things as basic as like syntax in a sentence. Do you use the same words over and over again? What's your vocabulary like? Are you using the right word for the right situation? Yeah, so syntax. And this is great because now it's just dead air there for a second as I just went talking about good writing. But so that's the basics. We will start with syntax, a sentence, word choice. That's important. And then let's build up from there. A paragraph. Is it a logical paragraph, thought out? Is it a cohesive argument? I mean, that may apply more towards nonfiction, but even fiction, I think, is easy to follow. Each paragraph should kind of be, or it helps if it's talking about a thing or an idea. You're not bouncing all over the place in the paragraph, unless that's your style. Then I think we can get into other things, themes, motifs, buzzwords that I barely remember from, freshman English class. Character development, plot. And I think that there is objectively good and objectively bad stuff there. That becomes a little more nebulous, though, in my opinion, to discern. I don't know. I think you can. I think you can judge an author and good or bad writing in terms of character development, plot development, and plot and that kind of thing. Even thematically, are there certain themes that show up in the book, certain motifs that keep coming back? And but here's the deal. I would just keep those opinions to yourself. Nobody wants to know what you think unless you're on a podcast and called Candid Creatives. And then everybody wants to know what you think. And by everybody, I mean the 18 subscribers we have on YouTube, maybe 16 after this episode drops, and the people who listen on your other devices. I mean, because you can listen to this thing anywhere podcasts are found, despite the fact that my mom thinks it's only on YouTube. But, we're working on that. So yeah, good, bad writing. There is objectively good and bad writing. Now, I'm not the best judge of that, and I know, I get that. There are some books. In fact, okay, here's one example. I read a book for my book club, and this book was lauded. That's a buzzword. That's a big word. It's not a huge word, but it's a big word. It's a heavy word. It was celebrated. It was lauded as a great work of fiction, and I hated it. I'm not going to tell you what I think I already have another podcast. I've told you what the book is, but I'm not here to trash talk Salman Rushdie at all. I just didn't enjoy it. I thought it was I thought I had personal beefs with it. But, the writing was beautiful. I will say that. So objectively, maybe good writing. Personally, I didn't like it. And there's other books that I've read. The one that I can say is always objectively good and I always enjoy is Lauren Lane, personal favorite of mine, which I just realized I'm 3 books behind of hers. So I've got to do some catch up on that. I know I have a list written. It was just 3 of them that I'm like, I actually don't remember the characters from this one. And we figured out I hadn't read it. So, I think there is objectively bad writing. The Bible comes to mind. It's, and when you're translating, it's awfully tough, I think. I'm sure the Iliad and the Odyssey, those were probably pretty cool in native high Greek. But after they got to English, it's like, all right, some of these words, I don't know if I would have picked. But the story, it's a good story. The Iliad. God. Yeah, good, bad writing. There is. I'm sure Lauren would have some commentary on this because she is far better read than good old me. But since she's on deadline and writing her own objectively good writing, she doesn't get a say. Okay? And that's what I've been trying to get to with this podcast for now years, is she doesn't matter. Okay? It's just about me. All right. That's enough on this question. I think we beat this dead horse. See, that's a cliche. That's a cliche phrase, but it's something that we all kind of know. And in common everyday speech, that might work. It may not work in your next work of fiction. I don't know. What are your thoughts out there in YouTube land and podcast land? What's the last thing you read that you thought this is objectively really good writing? And I that asking that question kind of presupposes that I am right in saying that yes, there is objectively good and objectively bad writing. But I'd love to hear your opinions as well, maybe in the comments, or write in podcast@anthonyledon.com. Or candycreatives@anthonyledon.com, I think is what I don't know. Just put a comment on YouTube or something, or drop me an email. I don't know. It'll get to me somehow. God, it just gets so hard. You can DM me on Instagram. I may not get to it for a couple of days. I've been enjoying not being on Instagram. Oh, here's a fabulous question. Also well written. And the handwriting, it's Lauren's, so it's quite exceptional. Here it is. When it comes to art, is done better than perfect? Yeah, I think so. Because if you keep... Well, no, maybe not. Okay, I'm going to go with yes, first of all. Because if it's done, then you actually finish it. Then you can deliver it, ship it. It can be shared with the world, which we talked about last week, or which I talked about last week, whether or not an artist is obligated to share their works with the world. But, hey, which one was this? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think done is better than perfect because you can't, perfect is a moving target. You can't, how do you know when what you're writing is perfect? It's always going to be good enough. And you may always want it to be better, but there's always going to be, I don't always speak in absolutes, but when I do, I have a whole bunch of caveats. I do think done is better than perfect because then it's done. Then you can get it out. If you're always striving for perfect, then it's like I can't remember. It was I think it was a Greek philosopher, Aristotle or one of those people. If you're always going halfway to your destination, you'll never fully get there. And that doesn't quite track with this analogy. This analogy doesn't quite track totally, but hear me out. I think trying to get to perfection, striving for perfection, it takes the level of effort to get to perfect doubles it doubles as you have the distance to perfect. Okay, let me explain. It's as you get closer to trying to achieve perfection, it gets harder to achieve perfection. Because what do you get? Like if I write a really good joke, but it's not perfect. Maybe there's something that I can maybe I can change that word instead of bagel, I can say crumpet. Oh, that's a great word. Okay, great. Now I made it a little closer to perfect, but is it really perfect? Well, I don't know. Maybe there's another change I could make, another tweak. But it gets so much harder. And at some point you hit that diminishing return where it just doesn't make any sense to try anymore. And that's where I'm at with my life. It is so good the way it is that any attempt to improve it or make it better, it's just not worth it. So I might just call it. Maybe I'm done. Maybe I'm done. See, this is where Lauren's feedback comes in handy here, because we need someone to roll their eyes when I go off on dumb tangents, dumb joke tangents like that. And we don't have her today because she's busy finishing up her book, which I don't know if she's. Oh, I think I can say it. It's Miranda in Retrograde. Go check it out on her website. It's laurenlane.com. And then I don't know if it's all one word, Miranda in Retrograde, or if there's hyphens between Miranda and in and Retrograde. But it's a really great high concept story, I think. I don't want to spoil it. Just go check out her website because that's been sanctioned. That's approved. And I don't want to reveal anything I shouldn't, because then I might be done. For real. Is done better than perfect. Now, but I do think, okay, now maybe I'm gonna backpedal. I'm gonna take the opposite side. I should sit in that chair right now, but I don't have another camera set up to catch me on that angle, so it's not gonna happen. I do think you shouldn't say done is better than perfect too early on in the process. I think you should, maybe you should, because a lot of the advice, and actually I would give this advice too, for instance, when you're writing a screenplay, a lot of the advice is like, just get to the end as fast as humanly possible, or as fast as AI can sputter out your story, in my case. But that is really good advice, because then you can take that and then tweak it. And sometimes, actually, I think the rush, just the speeding through of, especially in a screenplay, and I think, I don't know if I would say this for writing, like when I wrote Emergency Contact with Lauren, I don't know if we necessarily strove to speed through it, but we did really push to get to the end, because once you get there, then you've got a start and an end, and then you can start to tweak things in the middle to make it more perfect. But I don't know. Well, God, now I'm going back and forth here. I wanted to say you shouldn't say done is better than perfect too early on in the process, because then you're just pumping out shit. But maybe try to make it good shit. Put out your best shit that you can, push it and get to the end. And then as you edit, and then as you get bogged down in the edits and the swampiness, then you can maybe say at some point, okay, yeah, done's better than perfect. But don't say done is better than perfect if you're just putting out crap. I think done is better than perfect eventually, but just not too early. Too soon? I don't know. I mean, look at Joe Coy. At least he, obviously he didn't. I say obviously. I'm going off of whatever the news people are saying. Obviously, he didn't strive for perfection, but he had 10 days to do it. He did it. It's done. What can you say you did that? Can you say you hosted the Golden Globes? No. So I don't know. Maybe even a job not super well received by the news is still better than no job done at all. I don't know. He got paid for it, got some exposure. We're talking about it. He's still in the news. I don't know. That's like 4 or 5 points in favor of, yeah, do it. I don't think there are that many people out there that are going to be so turned off by what he did that they will see him in a guest role or a guest star role on TV or something, or maybe his special will pop up and they'll be like, oh, that guy? No, thank you. That's what people say when I get on stage. But see, I need the eye roll. Can ChatGPT, excuse me, sound like I got weepy talking about chat, but can Dolly or, I don't know, Adobe Firefly or something, can we get one of them to spit out like an AI Lauren that just rolls her eyes. And she doesn't always do that, but I need to look at somebody and just get that lack of a total response, like if it's not a giggle, like, oh yeah, keep telling me your dumb joke, go for it. If it's not that, I need that. I need a little check. And I don't get that when I'm all by myself. But, this is another example of done's better than perfect. At least we're getting this out. It's consistent. Well, it's going to be a day and a half, 2 days late, but go with me. Consistent with a big asterisk. Another C word, by the way. But yeah, getting it done. Because then people can, it may not be the best ever, but people can start to expect, oh, it's Tuesday. That's Anthony's podcast day with Lauren. Well, sometimes not when she's on deadline, but most of the time it will be Candid Creatives pops out on a Tuesday. And I think that's important because then you train people. They start to, oh, okay, yeah. He's got a new one out. Let's see. Well, let's refresh the podcast app on my iPhone and see what happens. Oh, this is a special call. I need help. This is an issue that I've been dealing with for weeks now, and I have not figured out an answer. Okay, if you don't like basic level tech stuff, you can skip over this for the next minute or 2 or 3, but here's my basic issue. So I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I'm trying to connect. I have a large video file on it, and I'm trying to get it off the phone onto my computer. Now, if I plug in an external hard drive, I get blazing fast speeds. I get USB 3.1 speeds. It's 10 gigabits per second, whatever. It's the fast. Okay. If I plug that hard drive into my computer, I also get blazing fast speeds. I plug the phone into the computer, I get USB 2.0 speeds, 480 megabytes per second, I think. No, megabits per second, whatever. It's still slow. So I've this 30 gigabyte video file should take 30 seconds to transfer, but it doesn't. I've tried different cables. I've tried 3 different USB 3.1 cable, 3.2 cable. I know there's different nomenclatures, different names, so I understand that. I've tried 3 different ones. I even went to Apple and I tried their Thunderbolt 4 $69 cable. I plugged that into my phone and my computer. Both of it, well, the computer's Thunderbolt 4 capable, the phone is not, but that Thunderbolt 4 cable should allow them to handshake and give me the 10 gigabit per second speed, but no, I can't do it. Now, I am transferring from within Finder. So anyway, if anybody out there has any intel to help me figure this out, I would appreciate it. Please email me, DM me. You can come over and we can chat about it over beers. Maybe not, but it's still, I need help. Because now I'm shooting this in a lower resolution, not a lower resolution, more highly compressed codec to make sure it's not a giant file on this one. And I'd like to be able to, use the full capabilities of this thing. Anyway, but I'm still doing it, because done is better than perfect. I think that, all right, that's a good question. Done is better than perfect. All right. Do we have other topics that you guys can write in topics too? A few of you have, and those questions are here. I appreciate that. You've emailed us. Your questions are in there. We haven't gotten to them yet, but they're in the list because there are a stack of them. Quick plugsies. I will be in Chicago Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the 17th, 18th, and 19th. I've got a show in LaGrange. LaGrange? I know there's like that sciencey Lagrangian term, but I think that's not how this is pronounced. LaGrange at the Elm on Thursday, on Thursday night. That's the, what date is that? It's not the 10th. Oh yeah, it's the 17th. It'd be the 18th, the night of the 18th. And then the 19th is the Friday. I've got a show there as well. I think at the Comedy Bar. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I wish I had a printout. Let's check my calendar. Boop. Oh no, I can't. Can I go that far on my watch? Thursday. Wednesday, Thursday. Oh, the answer is, that's Thursday at the Elm. Friday at the Comedy Clubhouse. Okay. Thank you, Tyler Fowler, for the spot. Appreciate that. So anyway, if you're in Chicago, check out my website, anthonyledon.com, for dates and times and details there. I will see you hopefully at one of those shows. Saturday night, I will be in Iowa for a corporate gig, and then Sunday, I'm flying back. We will have a new podcast out next week. You can be sure to catch us at Lauren will be back next week, by the way. That'll be super exciting. Thank you, by the way, for sticking with me for these last 2 episodes. One of which was late. I will admit. Oh, was the other one late too? I can't remember now. I hope not. But anyway, thanks for sticking with me. You guys are amazing. Have I hit the timer yet? Oh, I have 1 minute left. Well, that's pretty good. I think we did all right on this one. I did pad it with a minute up top with a little bit of patter. We might trim this down too, come out some of the silences. I think that'll be an exciting thing. But yeah, thanks for sticking with me. We'll get some more episodes up here shortly in this new year. We'll talk about creatives and goals. I know that's one thing Lauren and I have been talking about a lot. Money should money be a goal for creatives? That's always I know we covered it a little bit, but in talking to some of my friends, I like how I say some of my friends. Like, that sounds like a kid who like wants to sound like he has a lot of friends. And it's truthfully, I've been writing in my journal that's really what I meant. That I would like to have some monetary goals, but a part of me kind of thinks if you put that ahead of the art, then are you going to end up with crappy art? I don't know, but still, at least it's done. Then if you're hitting your money goal, I don't know. That went off topic here, but yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Follow me on Instagram, Anthony Ledon. Show dates, anthonyledon.com. You can follow Lauren at by Lauren Lane. That's Layne. And we'll be back next week with another podcast. Thank you so much. Bye.